could have left Helsinki 3 days sooner, and he would have already made history. By that point, he had won his second consecutive Olympic gold medal in the 10,000 meters and gold in the 5,000 meters as well. Those feats made him only the second athlete to achieve that double and the only one ever from his native Czechoslovakia. Rather than go home, though, he decided, why not run his first ever marathon? And despite his inexperience, 2 hours, 23 minutes, and 2 seconds later, he walked away with an Olympic record and a third gold medal. Today is Sunday, July 27th, 2025, and on this day in 1952, Czech runner Emil Zátopek became the only athlete in history to win the 5,000, 10,000, and marathon within a single Olympic Games. I'm your host, Running Up That Hillary, and you are listening to Today in Running History. Emil Zátopek was born in 1922 in what was then Czechoslovakia, the seventh of 8 children in a poor family. As a teenager, he tried to get a job at the factory where his dad worked. When that failed, he made an attempt to get into teaching school and was unsuccessful there too. Ultimately, Zátopek joined the production line at a shoe factory. Not his first choice job, or even his second, but one that would change his life. In an effort to promote physical fitness and discipline during the time of Nazi occupation, the company's owners mandated that all 100 of its employees compete in a 1,500-meter race. Zátopek didn't want to do it. He said he was sick, but his bosses were unmoved by his excuses, and on race day, Zátopek took his place at the starting line with his coworkers. The majority of us who become runners do so over time, struggling at least a little bit before it becomes more pleasure than pain. Not Zátopek. With that first race, he knew he had found what he was born to do, his place in the world. He finished second in that race, already dreaming of his next one. But before we talk about the races Zátopek went on to run, let's take a little detour into world political history. For about 1,000 years, there was a region of Central Europe called Bohemia. It kept this name until the end of World War I, and the country of Bohemia actually competed in the 1900, 1908, and 1912 Olympics. In 1918, Bohemia became a country called Czechoslovakia and was called this until 1993. This means that it was Czechoslovakia for nearly all of Emil Zátopek's life. Cultural differences and the desire of Slavic leaders for more autonomy led to the dissolution of Czechoslovakia on the last day of 1992. The region became the 2 sovereign countries, the Czech Republic and Slovakia, each of which have had their own separate Olympic teams since 1996. To make matters more confusing, the Czech Republic is also referred to as Czechia, and Slovakia is also referred to as the Slavic Republic, with the names being used interchangeably. For the sake of this episode, I will refer to Emil Zátopek simply being Czech, but during his life, he would have also been referred to as Czechoslovakian. Okay, so back to Zátopek. That first race was the last one that would have to be forced upon Zátopek. He loved the challenge, and he was a natural at it. Soon, he was invited to join a local athletic club and began to follow the training methods of legendary Finnish runner Paavo Nurmi. Side note, we will be covering Nurmi, also known as the Flying Finn, during tomorrow's episode, so make sure to tune in for that one as well. For the next couple of years, Zátopek trained and raced within the borders of Czechoslovakia, breaking several Czech track records along the way. His first international competition was in 1946 in Berlin. He took a train to Prague, but owing primarily to post-war travel restrictions, could go no further via rail. So instead, he rode his bicycle the last 220 miles. Once he got there, he won the race. After that victory, Zátopek set his sights on the upcoming 1948 Olympics in London. His entire training focus was on the 5,000 meters, but a couple months before the Olympics, Zátopek decided to try running a 10K. And surprise, he was good at that too. He decided he'd run both races at the Olympics that summer. On the very first day of the 1948 Olympics, Emil Zátopek won the 10,000 meters. A few days later, during a downpour, Zátopek finished second in the 5,000-meter final, less than a second behind the winner. And it was in those same Olympics in London that Zátopek met fellow Czech athlete Dana Ingrova, a javelin thrower. The two found out that they were both born on September 19th, 1922, and Zátopek proposed that they get married on that same date that upcoming fall. She agreed because why not? And 2 months after returning home from London, the two Czech Olympians did just that. In the years that followed, the couple both dominated within their respective events. Emil won 69 straight long-distance races before injuring himself by skiing into a tree in 1951. Which happens. That skiing incident exemplified the gracelessness that Emil Zátopek had already become known for. He had a distinctively clunky running style, which was often compared to that of Scottish runner Eric Liddell, who had glumped his way to 2 medals at the 1924 Olympics. Zátopek was also known for his pained countenance while running, much like the hosts of this very podcast. While his competitors typically looked relaxed during races, Zátopek instead grimaced like he was nearing death. And I gotta say, I love having something in common with an Olympic legend. Anyway, let's return to our story and the 1952 Olympics. Both Emil and his wife Dana again made the Czechoslovakian team, and the two made the trip to Helsinki to compete. Just like in 1948, the 10,000 meters was the very first track event. Zátopek won that race in an Olympic record of 29:17 flat, nearly 16 seconds ahead of the man in second. Zátopek did not perform especially well in the 5,000-meter qualifying heats 2 days later, but he did make it to the finals. July 24th turned out to be a big day for Mr. and Mrs. Zátopek. First, Emil earned his second gold medal of the Helsinki Olympics when he won the 5,000-meter final in a new Olympic record of 14:06.6. He had spent most of the race in the middle of the pack, but ran the bell lap in 57.5 seconds, just fast enough to take the win. Then, just 10 minutes later, Dana also set a new Olympic record while winning gold, throwing the javelin a full 50.47 meters during her first attempt, nearly 5 meters further than the previous Olympic record. Most couples might have called it a day at that point and chosen to spend the rest of their trip to Finland celebrating, relaxing, and perhaps watching a few other events from the stands. But even though Emil had never run 26.2 miles at one time in his life, he figured there was no better time to give it a shot than at the Olympics. He entered the race at the last possible minute he could do so. And it amuses me so much that that is even an option. Can you imagine during the Paris Olympics last summer, after winning bronze in both the 5 and 10,000 meters, if Grant Fisher just showed up and was allowed to enter the marathon too? Like it was an elementary school field day. Like, sure, he's not just some random guy off the street, but just to show up last minute for a new to you event is wild to me within the Olympics. Now imagine if Grant Fisher not only registered for that marathon, but ended up winning in a new Olympic record, because that is exactly what Emil Zátopek did. British runner Jim Peters had broken the marathon world record a month prior, so Zátopek decided he'd be a good person to latch on to. Around the halfway mark, the always talkative Zátopek asked Peters if the pace was too fast. In an attempt to trip up his competitor, the Brit replied that the pace was actually too slow. He likely realized the failure of this strategy as he watched Zátopek leave him in his dust. Peters eventually dropped out of the race. With him gone, Zátopek chatted with the photographers riding in the lead car just ahead of him. They reported that Zátopek never stopped talking, yet his finish was a full 2 minutes ahead of the next competitor. So some of you may recall that when Tara Woodall won Olympic gold in the long jump last summer at the Paris Olympics, she and her husband Hunter famously celebrated with a trackside kiss. Then when Hunter won gold in the 400 meters at the Paralympics the following month, they repeated that celebration. Those photos are some of the most iconic from the 2024 Games. But long before the Woodalls, the Zátopeks were the first married couple to each win gold at the same Olympics. And just like Tara running to Hunter after her winning jump last summer, the very first person who Emil sought out after winning the marathon was Dana. The two celebrated with a kiss that was caught by a photographer and became one of the most famous sports photos of the era. That is all I have for y'all today. Thank you so much for continuing to tune in. Make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, post about how much you love the pod on your stories and tag me. Then tune in tomorrow as we learn about the flying Finn and the 12 medals that he won over the course of 3 Olympic Games. I'm your host, Running Up That Hillary, and this has been Today in Running History. Wow, that was actually, I got through the whole intro without messing up. That was amazing. Can you believe that? Okay. I shouldn't have said that. Now I'm going to jinx myself. Throwing the javelin a full 5th. Oh my God. Why do numbers? Okay. 69. Why did I hesitate there? I can read numbers. Okay. There's no better way to give it a shot than the Olympics. No better time. God dang it. All right. Let's start over from most couples. All right. Breaking several check track records. Check track. With that first race, he knew he had found. Did I spell that right? Zátopek. Okay. I just misspelled it here. Okay. Am I saying Zátopek? All right. Her winning